Hello everyone, can I just welcome you to this LFJB Fenners webinar on planning together for children. It's good turnout, I think some more people are joining, but if we get going now, I'll just go through the running order quickly. Her Honour Judge Gordon Saker is going to speak first of all, and she's going to tell us about the new approach of the courts when fact-finding is still going to be necessary. We then have a slight change to the speakers. For the next part is Volker Buck, who's head of commissioning at CAFCAS, and Anya Phillips, who's head of practice. We're going to do a presentation on the new Planning Together for Children programme. And finally, we have Jane Bridge of the Family Mediation Trust, who's going to give us an update on mediation in Cambridgeshire. We should still have some time for questions at the end of the webinar, but do send questions in during the webinar. I suggest you don't wait till the end, so you can send them in through the Q&A function on your laptop or iPad, and please do feel free to send comments in through the chat icon as well. And of course we will be sending out recordings and presentations after this event, and feel free to share them with colleagues. Now I'll hand over to Her Honour Judge Gordon Saker.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Welcome everybody, and on your behalf can I thank Deborah for organising this webinar once again. She always puts together excellent presentations and plans, and a tribute to her, the number of people who come to these webinars. I think we're already at 100 participants. This afternoon's three topics probably don't look that well linked when you look at them from a distance, but in fact they are, because there is becoming a tendency now for us to be discouraged from having fact findings, for us to make parents concentrate very much on the children and not their own differences, for them to go on the new SPIP, if I can call it that, which you're going to hear about from Volker and Anya, and also to attend mediation. And a little bit of history probably helps here, because if one goes back about 20 years, domestic violence, as it was then called and given quite a narrow definition, tended to be brushed aside, and parents were told whatever's happened between the two of you, the important thing is the children should still see the other parent. Domestic violence widened far more into domestic abuse, which of course we're all very familiar with, and we moved towards having a proper assessment on the evidence, written and oral, and deciding what had gone on between the parents. And then once the decision had been made there, we moved on to look at the children's welfare against that background. In recent years, there have been so many fact-finding hearings. They have taken longer and longer because, of course, so many parents aren't represented, and there's been an attempt to re-look at it. And one of the cases, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, K&K, which was a Cambridge case, went to the Court of Appeal, who said these parents should really be going to mediation, focusing on their children and not on the relationship between them. In fact, I have since done the rehearing in K&K, and I can put the reference in the chat later on if anybody is interested in reading it. And I very much took the view the Court of Appeal were right, always a wise decision it seems to me, and decided that the fact finding as what happened between the parents wasn't relevant. The case really should focus on the children. Following on from K&K and other cases, the President of the Family Division, Sir Andrew McFarlane, asked Lady Justice McKerr and her team to come up with some guidance for fact-finding hearings. And hopefully you've all seen that. It came out last year on the 5th of May. If for any reason you haven't seen it, if you just type into any Google search, fact-finding hearings and domestic abuse in private law children's proceedings, guidance for judges and magistrates, you will find the guidance. And of course, what we need to do, all of us, is consider that guidance, consider, of course, practice direction 12J and part 3AA in relation to vulnerable parties. But we must not assume in every case that we need a fact finding to look at what's gone on between these parents. We have to ask ourselves as judges, and of course ask all of you as lawyers representing your clients, what's the relevance of the issues between the parents? Is it necessary? Is it proportionate to have a fact finding? Should these parents actually be going to mediation to try to sort out their differences? Should these parents go on courses to learn to focus more on the children? Or do we really need a baseline, as it were, about their relationship before we go forward? And the guidance is definitely leading us away, if I can put it like that, from having fact findings unless they are really necessary to resolve the issues in relation to the children's welfare. And therefore, when you come along for your first hearing, the judge should ask those questions to you if you're representing your clients, or indeed to the litigants themselves, which is obviously a bit more difficult as to why is it relevant, why do we need this fact-finding hearing and only have one if it is necessary. The mediation information assessment meeting is often ignored on the form. People don't tick the box, or they tick an exemption. Nobody queries it. So the Court of Appeal very much saying, and I think this will become more of a focus in the future, that mediation should be tried between parents. And again, planning together for children is something parents should do and focus very much on the children. So therefore, the steer I think you will find is now moving slightly away from a fact-finding hearing in every case. Another problem, of course, with fact-finding hearings is that since the Domestic Abuse Act, the judge is not supposed to question an unrepresented party anymore, or put the questions on behalf of an unrepresented party. Many of you will know that it's almost impossible to find the qualified legal representative to do the cross-examination. And in fact, further information or guidance is about to come out from the President's office to say that if we can't find a qualified legal representative, we'll go back to the judge asking the questions. And that really isn't satisfactory for anybody. So fact findings, if they are needed, we should have a qualified legal representative, but we often won't. And that's another reason why sometimes people are saying, do we really need this fact-finding hearing if it's not going to be satisfactory from the point of view of the parents, or indeed, perhaps more importantly, for the future welfare of the children. So in some ways, it's a slightly gloomy prospect in that if you do need a fact-finding hearing, you will find it hard to get the right person to ask the questions. You will be back with the judge asking litigants in person to email them in. We sift through the questions. We decide what's relevant. Sometimes the judge asks too many questions. The Court of Appeal say you interfered too much. Sometimes the judge doesn't ask enough questions. They say again, you didn't interfere enough. And then they say to us, and actually, why did you need your fact-finding hearing in the first place? So it can all become slightly circuitous. So moving forward, what we want to do is sit there at the very first hearing, say to people, why do we need this fact-finding hearing? If we do need one, we will try to find a qualified legal representative, but sadly may not be able to. But if we can drill down into the real problems between the parents, we may find that we don't need a fact-finding hearing. And if you think about it, and I'm sure you all find this in cases, we get huge delay when we have a fact-finding hearing, because it's going to take several months to get that first hearing, then several months after that to get the welfare report, and you discover that the absent parent hasn't seen their children for 8-9 months, when if they had gone to mediation, if they had focused on the children with planning together and looking at what they should be doing there, we might have avoided the fact-finding. The children might be continuing to have a relationship with the absent parent from as soon as they've separated. None of these cases are easy. In many ways, private law is the hardest because you often don't have guardians. We often have unrepresented parents who don't really understand the system. But what those of us in the system are doing, judges, CAFCAS, mediation, lawyers where they are representing people, is trying to work together to see what we can do, look at whether we need this fact finding, or if not, can we focus on the welfare of children. Doesn't mean, of course, that if there is a genuine abusive case and that it needs a proper investigation and facts being found, we will do it. I don't want anybody to think that judges won't, but we're going to ask ourselves at each stage, do we need to do it for these children in this case, or can we find another way forward to make the decisions about what's best for these children? What I'm going to do is I will put, as I say, the reference to the K&K rehearing in the chat box. If any of you don't know it, I'll put the reference to the fact-finding hearings and domestic abuse as well in that for you to have a look at. And towards the end of this seminar, if anybody's got any questions, I will try to answer it. But I think you'll find that the next talks about the planning together and about mediation probably more positive and constructive than fact findings, which are often negative and destructive for parents.
Thank you very much for that. And if we can now go to CAFCAS and Volker Buck and Anya Phillips. Thank you.
Right, thanks. I'm just trying to share my screen. Let me know if you can see a set of slides.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, it's 120 people now in a virtual room on a Tuesday afternoon at, what's it now, 4:45. So that's very impressive. So I hope you learn something in the next 10-15 minutes. I've mastered the first step of technology. So you've got the slide with my name and you've got Anya, who you can see on the screen on there as well. Let's see. So as Judge Gordon Sager already mentioned, SPIP no longer exists. Are the slides moving? Anya, can you nod? Excellent.
Yes,
Good.
Volker. Yes.
So 1st of April, we replaced the long-running SPIP, which was actually pretty much unchanged since 2009, and replaced it with something that was more 21st century planning, and we named it Planning Together for Children. Now, it wasn't just a switch overnight, it was a 15-18-month journey. We spoke to lots and lots of people, including most and foremost children, young people, and parents who've listened to their feedback. And for those of you who kind of like a bit of visual, what we ended up with is a bit of a staged approach. So we now, rather than having a 4-hour workshop, which is what SPIP was, and it was all moved to remote when COVID hit in April 2020, we now have 2 or 3 stages to Planning Together for Children. The first one is, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, a set of e-learning modules, all sort of bite-sized 7 to 10 minute modules. There's 8 of them plus an introductory module. And that's followed up with a 2.5-hour group workshop, because one of the loud and clear messages from parents was, we really want to hear from other parents. That's one of the most valuable bits. So we're not alone on this journey. So we kept that in, but we shortened it. And then a percentage of parents will get a follow-up call 6 to 8 weeks after they've completed the program or the course, just to see how they're getting on, just to remind them of what support's out there, and also to remind them how to check in to see what of the learning they've already applied. Wrapped around all of this, some of you in the call may have used our paper or in the last few years PDF version of our parenting plan. Completely revamped and reshaped that one, which is now available free for any parent online, and you're going to get the links as part of the presentation. So that's what Planning Together has morphed into from SPIP. There's a lot of information on our website. We've updated our pages, including how you can access the parenting plan, how you can access a Word version of the plan for those people who don't want to or can't access a digital version. And we also thrown in a leaflet, which looks far nicer than the one slide squeezed on a screen because it's on over 2 pages. So all that you'll get with the slides, but you can already access it on our Kafka's website. Now, just to sort of circle back to fact finding, so SPIP wasn't and planning together for children still isn't domestic abuse perpetrator program or domestic abuse program. But where the domestic abuse features in families, it doesn't exclude families to attend the course. Well, that's why you see on the slide, you know, the referrals are either coming from a recommendation from a social worker, from Kafka social worker and FCA, or they are court ordered. And the reason why that's still in there is so we can do the right assessments. Is this program course the right thing for parents? At the moment, we don't have a fee-paying version, which we had for SPIP, but we are waiting to hear back from the Ministry of Justice consultation on earlier resolution to see if we can open at least the e-learning part of the program of the course up for other parents. So parents will either get recommended by the FCA or court ordered. They get a login to a hub, an online parent hub where all the resources are on. And if I have time, I'll show you some. And that's always the most important or the most interesting part for people in courses like this. E-learning, I mentioned, we have 8 modules. And there's a bit of a theme to the module. And the key theme is it's all about the voice of the child, and it runs throughout the modules. And you find modules called Putting Myself into My Child's Shoes. You know, we're not neglecting the safety aspect and the relationship aspect between the parents, but it's really about the voice of the child throughout the content. And again, I'll show you a couple of snippets of video clips and you hopefully get the sense of it. All of these have been done in co-production with our Family Forum and our Family Justice Young People Board. It's followed up by a workshops in 2 parts, 2.5 hours. It covers some new ground, but really reinforces and checks in on the learning that parents would have done in their self-study. Just to give you a flavour, so we've been going live on the 3rd of April. The 1st was a Saturday, 3rd was a Monday. And in the time up until, I think this was last week, 19th of July, so we've seen we've gone over 8,000 referrals now. This is national, not for your area. So 8,000 referrals. About half of those, or just over half, have already completed the e-learning. And now we have over 3,000 people who have also done the group workshop. So large numbers, but very similar to SPIP, which saw around 25,000 parents a year being referred or ordered to the program. If you can't read it on your small screens, you will get the slides, but the initial feedback, or the feedback we had so far, is hugely positive. Parents tell us at the beginning they are not sure whether they can find some sort of agreement or some sort of middle ground. That attitude shifts quite significantly as they go through the program and complete the workshop. What we're now at the stage 3 months on, where we're starting to see more of these follow-up calls coming through. And for me, that's one of the it's another exciting part of the course, because we've never done that before. For the first time, we can actually check in on parents and see how they're getting on. And in 6 months' time, I want to do an overlay with parents who have come back to court to see whether we see a reduction of parents that go back to court after 6 months, because we know quite a proportion of families keep going back to court because arrangements aren't adhered to, for a better word. At the bottom of the slide, I'll put some of your local information, but roughly speaking, 1 in 5 referrals is made by an FCA. That's relatively low in your area, but I'm sure Anya's got a plan to increase some of it. The reason we would like to see that increased is so parents don't have to wait that long. At the moment, if an FCA doesn't make a recommendation, we have to wait for the court order. I'm not sure about your area, how long it takes to write them up, but there might be a delay. We can't bring that down. It's also encouraging that about 10% of all the parents that have started a parenting plan have already completed one. So parenting plan. I'll hope to give you some screenshots if you have time, but it's a bit like your driving license application, or it's a bit like your COVID test that you may have ordered and hopefully never have to order again. It's that sort of Gov UK tried and tested approach to online forms and online plans. So that's what we piggybacked on. The plan is now interactive. That means one parent starts it, invites the other parent, and then there is a bit of bartering. I like this, I like that, I don't agree, I agree. Goes backwards and forwards in a safe online space, and then we're inviting children and young people to be part of that as well. And at the end, or at any stage, parents can have a PDF version of how far they got with the parenting plan. But parenting plan is not mandatory. We don't force people to do them. It's voluntary, and that's an important distinction there, because it's something we promote. We want parents to do, but we can't ask them to do it. Just a last slide, I think, and then the slide pack you're going to get has a little bit more background information in there. But we've got Action for Children as our key provider, but we have 7 or 8 different more local providers that are delivering this big course and program for us. So, Deborah, have I got time to show some of the videos, some content? Have I got 5 minutes?
Yes, you've got plenty of time. In fact, yes, I have another 10 minutes.
Right, let me see. Now, this is always the most technical and tricky bit. If I can share the right screen. So let's see what I'm sharing now. Hopefully, can you see something purpley that says after completing this section? So let's see.
Yeah, see that.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. Hopefully, the sound will work as well, because I'm using Teams a lot, not so much Zoom. But this is part of the e-learning introduction module. And if I got this right, you're going to hear a couple talking about their experience of separation. And yeah, they're just going to talk about it. And this is part of the introduction. And it's all around sort of, not showing the perfect scenario, but actually acknowledging it's a journey. You may be somewhere further down or up the journey, but there isn't always a right or wrong. So let's see if one of you could give me a thumbs up when you can hear the sound.
No, we can't hear sound, I'm afraid.
Right, so let's go back and see if we can share sound. There we are. Hang on, I'll make it a bit louder for you.
I'm Pete.
I'm Jenny.
We've got 2 kids, Ben, who's 6, and Molly, who's 3 now, almost 4.
4 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So Jen and I split a couple of years back, and
it's not been easy.
No.
Naively, I think I thought at the time they were too small to really notice anything. That what we were going through might not affect them somehow.
I felt helpless. I really wanted to reach out and be there, I knew it was hard for Jen or the kids, but we couldn't find a way to talk it through, could we?
I still struggle to put into words just how shocked and betrayed I felt when Pete took me to court. Things then turned really nasty between us.
I think we both responded to each other like enemies. Like we didn't have any connection or need to be connected.
It was so confusing, the whole process.
I think we both agree that at the end of the day, with all the delays and other people making decisions on our behalf, for our children, it just wasn't worth it.
His sister and my brother helped us at the beginning, mediating between us. The kids started seeing Pete again, and I was so relieved that I could share the parenting with him again.
I think then that's when Ben became less anxious about me leaving him. He then got on better at school.
Moz seemed happier too. It was so nice to see her play again with her dad. They both really needed it. I think we still have different ways of doing things, but we also respect each other's approach, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I moved closer to the kids' school and we agreed on a clear routine that works for both of us.
Some days with him.
Some with her, and we let each other know if there's going to be any changes.
And we try to be as flexible as possible. Yeah. We managed to get where we are with plenty of help from professionals, friends and family, but mainly with the help of our kids.
It's incredible how, even at such an early age, they managed to show us, or tell us, how hard it's been for them.
I'm so glad we heard them.
And managed to put them first, together.
Yeah, together.
Got a little bit of introduction for to the parent who started just going through the module of what's this all about, what's important, and then let me show you a 40-second clip of one of the next modules. So we've got two young people, and throughout the e-learning they keep popping up and reminding parents about some of their experience. So again, hopefully the sound works this time. Anya, if you could give me a thumbs up when it appears.
Every week or month or whatever, my dad will ring up the school to change my brother's surname back. So at the moment, he's got my mum's surname, but next month, my dad will ring up the school and say, no, this is his legal name. And then my mum will be like, no, this is his legal name. It's just ridiculous.
It's a very sharp, short and sharp. And I'll just show you another one. This is the second young person, Byron, and he keeps coming up throughout the e-learning modules and just reminding parents or give them with some examples.
Hi, Mum. Hi, Dad. I just don't get it. You both say that you love me. When you fight, you argue about me. Or sometimes, you don't even speak to each other at all. But somehow, you think that none of this is going to affect me. I just don't get it. It's like that sometimes you don't even care about how I feel. Sometimes I wish things could be different, but I understand you don't want to be together anymore. But surely you can find a better way, though, of being my parents than arguing the whole time.
So again, just a quick reminder what we want to focus on. Now, Deborah, I'm going to ask you again, have I got 5 more minutes or have I run out of time?
No, I think we're still fine. Yeah, we're still fine. As long as you finish by 5:15, that's fine. So
fine. I'll do my last bit. And this is another example. I mean, I'll show you videos. I mean, there's lots of exercises where you drag things around and pen and paper exercises. But I always find in these virtual sessions, the videos are probably a good way to start. So I'm going to fast forward now. We've just completed all the e-learning. And hopefully, can you see a slide again or some?
Not yet. Not yet.
Let me share that. The group slide. Screen 2. That's it. Now let's see if I can.
And now.
Just need to share the sound again. Yeah, it's shared. So this is part of the, which am I going to choose? I'm going to choose. Yeah. So this is part of the group workshop. I'm going to make it bigger in a minute. And I'm going to move you over here. So it's a scenario where a teenage daughter comes home from a weekend at her mum's, and dad's just is just there, and she's just coming back. So let's make this. Let's start.
Hi.
Hi. You okay?
Yeah.
Good. Lasagna's in the oven. Just needs heating.
Oh.
What? You've eaten already? When were you thinking of telling me this?
She said you'd appreciate not having to cook for once.
Oh. That was nice, huh?
It was, actually. You need to cut her some slack. She's really trying.
She is now.
And that's a reason for you to be upset, is it? Glad you made it about you.
Wow. She really has been working hard on you, hasn't she? Upstairs, please. And I want all your homework done before any screens.
Whatever. She's did at hers now.
Yeah, whatever. Thanks, sweetheart. Makes me feel great.
Well, you don't even want me to get on with her, do you? She's making an effort, so why can't you just be happy?
Because, darling, she gets to swan in here on a charm offensive whilst I'm doing all the actual parenting. It's all very convenient she gets to step up to the plate now, isn't it? Where was she when we actually needed her? Do you talk about that over your milkshakes?
This is so unfair.
Yeah, clearly.
Right, so that's kind of, again, it's relatively hard hitting in places, but it's probably quite realistic in terms of what's going on. So the group, which is no more than 5 people, will then have a chance to, reflect on the video. There's a couple of exercises that go along with it. So it'll take about 4 or 5 minutes for the facilitator. And then what will happen is the same scenario plays out just with a slightly different dialogue and pauses in between for the group again to just revisit and rethink. And this is all about behavior modeling, what could be done different. So let's just listen into the same scenario, but slightly different dialogue.
Hi.
Hi. You okay?
Yeah.
Good. Lasagna's in the oven. Just needs heating.
Oh.
What? You've eaten already? When were you thinking of telling me this?
She said you'd appreciate not having to cook for once.
Oh. That was nice, huh?
It was, actually. You need to cut her some slack. She's really trying.
She is now.
And that's a reason for you to be upset, is it? Because you made it about you.
So this is one of those pauses. The facilitator will bring the group in and think, what could be that? What could the dad do different here now?
It's not about me, sweetheart. It's just about Mum letting us know, so we can plan in advance and not waste a good meal when we're on a budget. Look, it's fine. The food will keep another time, I'm sure. Don't worry. So, what did Mum spoil you with this time? Oh.
Again, this just what could be done now if you're in this position.
She really did spoil you.
Yeah. She said you'd allow me to watch it if I get my maths done.
Well, at least we're in agreement about one thing. Hey, come on. Come on. I'm sorry. Okay? I felt bothered and jealous because she still gets to do nice things with you. And I miss our nice times, you know?
Yeah. Me too. I just wish you didn't hate her anymore. It makes it harder.
I don't hate her. Just give me time, okay? Like 30 years, at least. Okay, go on. Maths, please. And can we get your bag and uniform ready? Not leave it till the last minute?
Yes, Dad.
Thanks, sweetheart. It's nice to have you home.
So let me just stop sharing some way. So you get a flavour of the approach. I hope you had a flavour. I can see 4 people on the screen here, not the 117 that are still in the call. So only 1 dropped out, but I think two joined. So hopefully that gave you a bit of an insight of all the hard work really that's gone into developing this resource, which, like I said, took 18 months, and we have really worked with young people all the way through to make sure their voices are heard. We didn't want to lose the good work that's gone into the SPIP, but we really wanted to bring it more into the 21st century, 2023. And we have now actually a far better way to check in with parents and see how they're getting on. All the stuff we didn't do before or couldn't do before, without losing some of the good work that SPIP paved the way for. So I'm going to stop there and hand it back to Deborah.
Thank you very much. That was very informative and great to see those videos. Some questions have come through. You could possibly have a look at them while we hear from Jane, because Jane might want to contribute to the answers as well. There may be some more questions too. Right, so if I hand over to Jane now.
Okay, thanks, Deborah. And thanks very much to Volker too. That was really interesting and good to hear. Are you able to see my screen okay?
We can, thank you, Jane.
Great, thank you very much. Always reassuring. Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me along to speak, and thank you also to Liza for the observations that she made also about mediation at the start. Things are moving on rapidly in the mediation world. Together with the consultation that has been taking place over the last 12 months or so, the mediation world itself has been moving forwards and looking at how it can best fit in with whatever the evolving situation is going to bring along with it. So today I just wanted to pick up on a few things. A reminder, first of all, just very briefly about how mediation works and how it fits in with the other options that clients have to consider. Looking at how the mediation world ensures the quality of its outcomes and looking at the updates that have been made to mediation standards in the last year or so. Looking at why, for many people, mediation is the only option. It's the only affordable way to try to resolve issues that they have with their other parent. Why mediation has never been cheaper than it is now. There are extra sources of funding that have come on stream in the last couple of years. And also, what is the government thinking at the moment in terms of policy moving forward with mediation? So to start with, just a very brief reminder about how mediation works. I know that a large proportion of you probably have trained as mediators yourselves or have a very good working knowledge of this, but just as a refresher to those who may not know quite so much about it, the process involves clients meeting with an impartial third party, the mediator. They're seen separately at the beginning of the process for what's known as a MIAM, Mediation Information and Assessment meeting. That now must last a minimum of 1 hour. If it lasts for less than that, we have to record the reasons why, because there is a lot of information to get through in that hour, and the Ministry of Justice is keen that, there's a standardization of what information is given. So you should be able to assume that whenever you refer a client to a mediator, they're going to get the same information at MIAM, wherever in the country they might be accessing it. One of the most important parts of the mediator's job at that MIAM meeting is to check in for domestic abuse and safeguarding issues, looking at coercive controlling behaviour and how that might affect the client's ability to participate or not in mediation. If after that meeting, both the clients and the mediator feel that mediation is a suitable way of moving forward, then it moves forward to the full mediation process. The second party is also seen at MIAM, and provided that both clients are on board with it and the mediator thinks it's fine, then we move forward to joint sessions. And those can include a variety of different processes depending on the needs of the clients in the case. So if the mediation is particularly complex or the dynamics are particularly difficult, the mediator may bring on board a co-mediator. So there are two mediators in the room with the clients to help handle the dynamics and issues that come up. Where there has been significant domestic abuse, one of the options that we can look at is shuttle mediation. That's where the mediator sees each of the clients separately either on screen or in person, and moves between the two clients in order to try to help them to negotiate between them. So the clients do not come face to face. The mediator carries messages and information between them in an effort to narrow the gap and to try to help them come up with a solution to their problems. The mediation process can also involve solicitors. It can involve financial advisors, for example, if necessary, provided that everybody is giving consent to those extra people being involved in the process. We frequently use interpreters where that's needed, and support workers, particularly if people are perhaps neurodiverse or if they have extra learning difficulties and challenges, or just difficulty perhaps through mental health problems in speaking up for themselves. So it would be quite usual for us to have extra people within the session, provided again that everybody consents to those people being a part of it. At the end of the process, a formal document is produced by the mediator that outlines the any processes or agreements that they have made, and also identifying the areas where they are still not agreed and looking at what the further actions required for that might be and how people might resolve those going forward. The whole process is confidential, and it is legally privileged to the extent that it is not open to either of the clients to reveal to the court or to anybody outside the process what has happened, save for the purposes of accessing legal advice and so on. However, if they do come up with an agreement that they both agree they want to reveal, perhaps within court proceedings to the judge who's perhaps listening to a case and has referred it out for mediation, then provided that both parties agree simultaneously to lift the confidentiality over their written agreements, then those can be revealed and shown to the court, and can in appropriate cases be embodied into a consent order if the judge is in agreement with that and if the circumstances require it. If for any reason the mediation does not lead to agreements and it breaks down without agreements or without full agreements, then the mediator will issue court form if the clients wish to then move on to court proceedings. So at that stage, clients will decide, how best to move on to the next step, and that might be continuing to negotiate through solicitors at arm's length. It may be starting court proceedings. It may be taking the case to arbitration. It may be taking the case within the collaborative law context, or it may be going for some form of early neutral evaluation. Or indeed, it may be that the work has been done sufficiently within the mediation for the clients to resolve the rest of the issues between them without needing extra third-party input. That, of course, would be the best case scenario. So it's just a brief overview of how the process works. How can we ensure that the quality of the outcomes in mediation? What are the standards that govern what mediators do? Well, the Family Mediation Council, in conjunction with the other main membership bodies, mediation membership bodies, has been working really hard to try to upgrade the standards in order that public and people accessing mediation can be confident that the people they're seeing are professional, experienced, properly regulated, and properly trained. So, as I said just now, one of the new changes is that the MIAM meeting must be at least 1 hour. And there have been also enhancements in the screening that is now required to screen for domestic abuse and for safeguarding, to make sure that those are as thorough as they possibly can be. It's also compulsory for mediators to give clients information about all the other options that may be available to them for resolving the issue. And that, as I said just now, could include things like collaborative law, arbitration, early neutral evaluation, solicitor-led negotiation, and so forth. In addition, any complaints coming in about mediators have been moved from the mediator, the sort of separate membership organisations to which mediators belong, to the central umbrella organisation, the Family Mediation Council, which keeps an overview and regulates standards now from a central point. And that means that there is now a consistency in how complaints are handled. There's a special board section of the Family Mediation Council that deals exclusively with those. And therefore the public can be reassured that if things go wrong in mediation, mediators are answerable to the council. There is work being done also at the moment on new ways to accredit, looking at modular accreditation, more e-learning, and so on, to also look at ways of helping mediators who have withdrawn from practice to return to practice, because I anticipate that demand for mediators will increase if the government consultation goes the way that we expect it to. And also continuing work is being done on domestic abuse screening to make sure that that is continually updated and make sure that it's relevant and as safe as it possibly can be. What is important if you're going to access a mediator is to make sure that you are going to a mediator who is properly accredited through the Family Mediation Council. It is only accredited mediators who are able to complete and sign off court forms for clients. Only accredited mediators can access financial support for clients. That's through legal aid and through the Ministry of Justice voucher scheme, which I'll talk about a little bit in a moment. And you can only be sure that you can make a formal and proper complaint against a mediator if they come within that accredited framework, so that the Family Mediation Council can look at in detail at complaints. And just as a general piece of information, to become accredited, a mediator not only has to pass an 8-day foundation course and then be assessed on that, but over the next 2 to 3 years, they're required to work with an accredited mediator or be supervised by a proper supervisor, practice consultant, whilst they work through a portfolio of cases and finally submit that portfolio to the Family Mediation Council for assessment. And that is a very arduous and demanding process, and something which takes a great deal of experience and assistance from supervisor to help mediators to work their way through. So it's not an easy route into accreditation. In addition, of course, mediators have to attend regular CPD courses and have regular supervision sessions with their supervisors. Just briefly then, to look at why mediation is the only option for many people, albeit that, of course, legal advice is in many cases, if not most cases, required during or after the process. I think the key piece of information is that most people cannot afford legal advice these days. The average weekly income, for example, in Peterborough, which is one of our most kind of common areas for mediation in our area, the average weekly income is just £544 per week. That does not leave very much scope outside that for paying anything extra over and above mortgage, rent, subsistence level, food, and so on. 44% of children in single parent families, households, in this country live in poverty. Over 60% of the cases that the Family Mediation Trust sees include legally aided clients. About 71% of litigants in court are not represented, and about 58% of parties in domestic violence courts are not represented. So that amounts also to 21% of applicants. So about a fifth of applicants in those cases are not represented. And 84% of the referrals to mediation do not come from the legal sector. They will come perhaps from people accessing us through the internet, or perhaps from partner organisations and so on, word of mouth recommendation by friends and so on. So there is a lot of scope for the legal sector to get more involved in referring clients to mediation in appropriate cases. Mediators are very keen and strongly recommend that clients do need and should get legal advice alongside mediation. As a mediator, obviously, we're not allowed, even those of us who come from a legal background, to give legal advice. We can only give legal information, and of course we do that as much as we possibly can to help clients, but we can't say to clients, this is what is best for you to do, and Mr. A and Miss X, this is what's best for you to do. You know, they need to have separate advice from their own solicitors, and we strongly urge clients to do that where that's possible. So recognising that many clients can't afford that, we do value and work regularly with local law clinics in all the various areas that we work with to try to ensure that access to at least a basic level of legal advice is available. It's important that that advice is targeted at key times, and mediators are really good at pinpointing for clients when it's really worth them taking advice, you know, perhaps before developing options and or perhaps after they've reached what they think are in principle agreements, but before they want to implement those, they want to make sure they're actually doing the right thing for them. So the use of solicitors within a mediation process is crucial, and as a trust we've always been open to collaboration with various legal organisations and will continue to be so. It's a vital part of what we do. Just to talk a little bit more about the financial support that is out there for clients, I think it's really important for people to know that for many, mediation can be completely free. First of all, we can assess people for legal aid, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But also, the Ministry of Justice has made available £500 vouchers, that is £500 per case, to support the cost of mediation relating to child issues. Now, those vouchers can be used in conjunction with legal aid support as well. So where we have one client of the two who's entitled to legal aid, but the other is not, then the voucher can be used for that client who's not entitled to legal aid to support the cost of mediation going forward. And the trust, our trust, does do all the administration in connection with the vouchers, so clients don't have to be worried about how that will happen. And we discuss with clients at every MIAM the availability of legal aid and the voucher scheme. And we have been reassured by the Ministry of Justice that that funding is secured for at least the next 2 years. And we're hopeful that the current consultation will mean that that will carry on being available into the future. But obviously, we don't know what the consultation will reveal at this stage. We should say that in the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough area, there is also some extra grant funding which the Family Mediation Trust has accessed, and that can cover the costs of a child session in a child inclusive mediation. So that is where we're able to, the mediator has a separate meeting with the child within the mediation process, and provided the child gives consent for certain feedback from that session to be given to their parents, then the mediator will provide that feedback for the parents in a protected context, and the parents can use that feedback to help them to move forward. So that grant funding can be extremely helpful to cover that session. In addition, that support, grant support, is there also to cover the cost of mediation if the family have a child with special educational needs. And speaking as a mediator who has done quite a lot of special educational needs mediation over the last 10 years, I can say that that would be really, really welcome in many families. So around our area, there's a crying need for support for those families. So legal aid, as I said, is assessed at the MIAM, but can be reviewed all the way through the process if someone's situation changes. So even if they're not eligible at the start of the process, they may become eligible during it. For example, if they lose their job or something radical changes in their financial situation. We ask people to provide evidence of their finances up front, and so that assessment can be done as efficiently as possible. And key considerations are whether the clients are in receipt of a passporting benefit, and that will include the benefits listed there. And importantly, it includes at the moment universal credit, although we anticipate that through the changes that are happening in terms of tendering for legal aid, that it may well be that universal credit is removed from the passporting benefits, or at least the evidence required if somebody is receiving over a certain amount of universal credit may be more arduous. So we're keeping our eyes on those changes. But at the moment, the thresholds are listed there, and you can have a look at those on the slides later. But suffice to say that a large proportion of our clients are able to benefit from legal aid. And I think one of the important things perhaps to know from that is that where at least one client is eligible for legal aid, we are able then to offer a free MIAM to the non-eligible client, and also a free first session for the non-eligible client. And that's an extra carrot that the government offers. And so clients would only start, an ineligible client would only start being charged after the first mediation has taken place. So it really enables people to get started on the process without cost. So what does it cost if they don't become eligible for legal aid? A fee for MIAM for people who are not eligible is £119 at the Family Mediation Trust. And then we have two rates for the mediation joint sessions. It's either £180 if the clients are earning a reasonable wage and are earning above the kind of minimum and living wage rates. But if they are on a lower income, but still do not qualify for legal aid, we have a reduced rate of £120, which we make available for them. And that is for an hour-and-a-half session. So the MIAM lasts 1 hour, and then one joint mediation would last for an hour-and-a-half. And the fee includes the cost of the paperwork that the mediator draws up for the clients at the end of it. So there's no hidden extras over and above that. And therefore, although there is a cost to the clients, then it should be reachable for people who are within that lower to medium bracket. So looking now at the policy updates and what we can expect to see over the course of the next year or so as the government consultation comes to a conclusion and we look at the future, we're expecting that there will be less exemptions from MIAMs than there are currently, so that more people will find that they are having to attend a MIAM and can't sort of exclude themselves from it. We'll find that probably there are more mechanisms being made available to encourage clients to take a more committed approach to mediation, including an enhanced policing of exemptions to MIAM by the judiciary and by court staff looking at applications as they come in. We can look possibly at use of costs orders by the courts to encourage people to do mediation or to penalise them if they haven't done it and it would have been reasonable for them in the situation to do it. and some form of demonstration to the court that they have used a reasonable level of commitment to the mediation process if they've tried it. Again, evidence is being given currently to the Select Committee of the House of Commons in connection with this consultation. So we don't know yet what will come out of it, but at a fair guess, those would be the areas that we can expect to see some movement in. We also expect to see, as I said, a commitment in the longer term to the voucher provision at £500 per case. We're going to be looking at new legal aid contracts subject to the Civil Legal Aid Review, and possibly less people eligible for legal aid due to the assessment changes. As I said, if universal credit is removed or partially removed as a passporting benefit, then that is going to cut out quite a lot of clients who would currently be eligible for legal aid, and it will lead to a more arduous assessment process for them. But we'll wait to see what happens along those lines. So what we can expect is that there will be less legal aid providers in the market going forward. At least 50% of providers have dropped out over the last 5 years, and that's likely to continue. We can see an increased demand for mediation, leading to possible price inflation, mediators coming back onto the register, requalifying, and perhaps an increased number of mediators training. We can look at probably mediation dealing with cases that have an increased level of conflict and domestic abuse, as cases that are diverted from perhaps the court process through the appropriate pathway. Hopefully we can look forward to a great connection between mediators and solicitors and some innovative solutions for clients, and perhaps clients coming to mediation before they obtain legal advice, perhaps so that mediators see them at an earlier stage, and to the FMC providing perhaps improved routes for new mediators to reach full accreditation. So just finally, why should clients try mediation? What can we do to encourage them into the process? First of all, perhaps to reinforce the fact that it's cheaper and quicker than court proceedings in appropriate cases and where it's safe to mediate. It's free for those who qualify for legal aid and vouchers, at least for part of the process. Clients retain the decision-making within their own hands. They are strongly encouraged by the mediators to take legal advice during and after the process. There's a chance that clients will remain on speaking terms afterwards. And in appropriate cases, children can have their voices heard through child-inclusive mediation and potential grant funding for that. All clients, as I said, receive a confidential summary that's written, what they've agreed. And in appropriate cases, they can still apply to have those agreements embodied into a consent order in court, but they have to, at the moment at least, follow the same court process as that for contested cases. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the updates. I hope I've covered everything that can be useful, but you'll be able to look at the slides later if necessary, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So I'll just stop sharing right now. You'll see the details for referring to the trust on the last page of the slides. Okay, thank you very much, Deborah.
Thank you very much, Jane. There are a couple of questions that haven't been answered. I think Volker's provided written answers that everyone can, I hope, see if they tap on Q&A. Volker, one more question for you is that someone says that they were expecting some professional sessions on the programme and wondered if they were still going to go ahead.
If we know about them, they can, yes. I'm not quite sure where these sessions. Yes, there's a short answer. We just need to know what group, where, then we can provide some sessions.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. And I think this is probably for you, Jane. Who facilitates the grants in Cambridge and Peterborough? i.e., does the court have to include in an order, and can it be used in conjunction with the Ministry of Justice voucher scheme? Are you able to help on that?
Yeah, I can. No, the court doesn't need to deal with that. The Family Mediation Trust will deal with all of the administration to do with grants within the Peterborough and Cambridge areas. And so it doesn't need anything further than that. And yes, it can be used in conjunction both with legal aid and with the voucher scheme.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if anyone else has got any more questions, but do type them in now if you have. Right, I think you've answered all the questions. So I don't know if any of our speakers have got anything else to add. Otherwise, I'll just thank them all very much. And as I said at the beginning, link to the recording and the presentations will all be sent out to everyone who's registered for the webinar. And I think we're also going to make them available on social media and our website. Do feel free to share those recordings with colleagues. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.